Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Try Not to Curse. I'm telling you guys, I think I'm going to start a book club. I think we need to start a book club because now I think this is now the 6th or 7th author we've got on the show. Amy is here to talk about her book, Chasing Worthiness. We're going to get into a couple of different things, but Amy, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. A mutual acquaintance got us in touch with one another. I really appreciate that. Thanks, Catherine. But you were a counselor.
Yes.
For a while.
For about 24 years in total. 19 years at New Fairfield Middle School.
And now you're a life coach.
Yes.
Now, okay, let's talk about what a life coach is, what a life coach does, because I think a lot of the time people hear that and, they think about like the influencers and they think, and they're like, okay, really, how do you make a living off of that? And, so kind of walk me through your process or the types of people that you help.
Sure.
What is it that you...
Sure. I call myself an empowerment coach, which is just a life coach with a more, descriptive name. Obviously, I like to empower people. That's what my purpose is. And what I will start with what a life coach is not. And that is, it is not therapy or counseling or mentorship. Those areas, well, especially the therapy and the counseling, they really work with the person's past and why things have happened and self-discovery in that sense. What I do as an empowerment coach is I meet my client where they're at present time and we move forward. So many times I'm working with people who are in therapy or have been in therapy.
Okay.
And then they're like ready to just, let's move on. Let's move forward.
Okay.
We figured all that out. Let's go ahead and move forward. And many times I work with people who've never been in therapy. But they're definitely distinct. Working with me is really about how you want to show up for the world present day time. So that's kind of how I try to explain about what it is. For me, what I do specifically is I tend to work with people, and I'm talking ages 18, 65 plus, who are maybe at a crossroads or working through a transition in life that they're either struggling with or they're curious about, not necessarily struggling with, but definitely looking forward to creating something new for themselves or trying to figure out how they fit in life's new circumstances that are there for them.
Yeah.
So for my really cool niche, as they say, it's not really my niche, but it's something that just organically happened for me.
Okay.
Was I have had and have quite a few young adult clients from ages 18 to 29, and many of these individuals grew up through the pandemic, and so learning how to adult is very different for them than it was for any generations prior before.
Yeah.
I know people say, well, every generation has their thing, which is really true. But this year or two of isolation really did a number on our kids who were growing into, their teen years and then their young adulthood. So what's happening is it's hard to listen to your parent when you're still fighting so hard for your autonomy. And so I actually often am hired by parents to coach their kids into being independent.
Okay.
So, and I think for the majority of the young people that I work with, it's easier to, say, well, I worked through this with my coach than trying to, talk about my mom said this, my dad said that, my parents said this, my caregiver said that, however that works.
Yeah.
And it seems to be working. And it's a place where I feel like young adults can really start problem solving, which was a big loss during the pandemic.
Even before that, we were getting rid of a lot of programs. We were getting rid of home economics and wood shop and those kinds of things that, people just deemed as like, oh, those are skills that you'd only need if you went into that trade.
Right.
And it's like, well, no, people need to know how to boil an egg.
Absolutely.
Because there's going to be a point when I have to feed myself and then feed my family.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's been kind of a steady decline. Again, we're not learning cursive. We don't know how to read analog clocks. There's a lot of things that for some reason we have just deemed unnecessary.
Well, technology has taken out the
Yeah.
need for many of these things.
Yeah.
But then the other clientele I work with are, it's men and women. I've been really surprised with the number of male clients I've had because originally I was like, okay, I'm going to work with women, but I didn't like pigeonholing myself to one gender.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because everybody is starting to really take time to think about themselves and where they fit in this world. It's not just women. So that's been really kind of fun and interesting. But generally people who are just, for example, planning out retirement, planning out the last few years before retirement. These are falling off of my
I'm sorry.
no, just slowly going back, but sorry. But people who are struggling with sleep, people who I've worked with, people who struggle with instant gratification. Got to have this now.
Oh yeah.
Got to have this now. We don't know how to wait anymore.
Yeah, we're that culture.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And for those of us that are kind of in between, because I feel like I'm in between that, like when I think my children were little, and that's when instant messaging happened, So I kind of feel like I'm in the middle of when all, like in the very beginning when all that started, I was already a grown adult.
Right.
So it's a lot of cultural shifts and changes, and and a lot of people are just trying to be like, okay, well, where do I fit in here?
And I think people, especially nowadays, very easily get overwhelmed.
Oh, sweet.
And like you said, instant gratification. So we all believe that I need to provide you with an answer right now. I need to provide you with a response right now. I need to get this done, checked off my list immediately, or I'm not going to get to it, or something else is going to come up. So would you say that you are a support system, more than anything?
I am a support system.
I
am part of whatever support team they create for themselves.
Yeah. So they come to you and they say, I've got this going on. And you say, okay, let's look at it this way. Let's take it one step at a time. You kind of just calm things down.
Yeah, I actually start, like, I have a start for them, which is most people are really grateful for, because they're, what they think they want isn't really what it ends up what they want.
Sure.
But I start with looking at where how they behave energetically. So basically, I have an index that I have most of my clients start with. It's not a have to, but it is. It's an assessment. It's an attitudinal assessment, so it has to do with your perceptions and your attitudes. It's not a personality thing.
Okay.
It's basically like, in this situation, you feel this kind of a thing, and then you react to, like, I think there's 70 statements that you react to, and I collect all of that data, and I will sit down with you and I will go through. There's 7 levels of energy that this measures a person. And the lower energies are the energies where we tend to feel stuck and we don't move. We're even apathetic, and moving up into anger, which is a really important emotion. We all need to embrace anger and not be so afraid of it. It can be very motivating, but it can also keep us stuck. And then how we grow into self-forgiveness and into areas where we are really working with our potential, less judgment, and as we climb up the levels of energy. And what this does is it tells people how they operate, so that they can shift and move through those energy stages so that they can be functioning where they know they're going to be more productive. Like when you're in a low mood, what does it take for you to move yourself up another energy level? Like, do it. If you know what it is, do it. Get yourself out.
Or even if you can't get yourself out, what can you still accomplish in that? Just
Absolutely.
Just check one thing off a box.
Right.
Yeah.
So I start there so people can start understanding how they show up for each day and how that impacts every decision, every move they make, how they move forward, how they stay where they're at.
Now, would you say with people with higher energy, you're more kind of encouraging them to slow down maybe and just say, hey,
no, we embrace that.
Okay.
We embrace that.
Go for it.
Moments of high energy, they're for many people. There's so many different people. For many people, it's not sustainable.
No.
So it's how do we flow in there when we need to, and how do we know when to, I'm a little exhausted, bring myself down.
Yeah.
But mostly I'm like, okay, when you're in that flow, like when you're in level 5 and level 6, which are really great levels to be in, like how do you make the most of that and how do you sustain it? Embrace it.
Or at the very least, just get back to it. If you can't sustain it, okay, but how do we get there again? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a tool that I use, and it just helps people even when they talk with me. Well, I was stuck in my level 4 and I couldn't get to my level 6 lens, and it's just a way to have a conversation. With my
and I would
clients.
imagine it's nicer and it's easier. Rather than saying, okay, you're making excuses. You can look at it as like, okay, well, this is where your energy is at. So let's see, let's just get us out of past that, rather than just saying like, okay, dude, like, come on, you know. So I'm sure that's
every once in a while the reality coaching does hit in, but that's not until the client has really become comfortable with me, and I feel like this is something the client can absorb and get motivated from. But yes, it's definitely it's a way to talk about things without pinpointing, and I really work hard on. It's a judgment-free place. I mean, I after you read my book, I cannot judge. There's no, and you have to keep it. You have to keep it feeling safe for people to talk and actually do the work that they need to do to push themselves to move forward.
Absolutely. So what motivated you to write a book?
Okay. Wow. So I think that I've always wanted to write a book, even though I was a school hater. Not going to lie. I was a school hater. I struggled in school. I didn't feel the whole worthiness piece. I did not feel I had and I love her dearly, but I had a sister who was valedictorian material. Yep. So she's older. So I was always following that. And I was probably have ADHD. There's things that were not discoverable before. Sure. Definitely I look back now and I'm like, so totally different end of the spectrum from what my sister and
my sister and I are the same way. I completely relate. She's younger, but it was the same thing. It was straight A's, It
seems so easy,
right? Exactly.
And here I'm like just struggling to get my ass out of bed and get to school.
Right.
But so it's funny that's kind of, and then I ended up working in a school for 20 years, which is a big joke at Thanksgiving every time we get together.
I mean, it's nice though, because it's relatable, right? You can absolutely relate to those students that are like, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't understand it. I'm not smart enough, whatever it is that they've got that's holding them back. Yeah.
So anyway, because I can digress really easily. How did I get here?
That's right. We love it.
So I was really struggling with a role change for school counselors. I don't know, probably about like 6 or 7 years ago, I started to feel a shift. And it wasn't really aligning with my own values. For a time when mental health providers, I was not a mental health person, but as a school counselor, I worked within that realm. It was the kids needed us. The kids needed school counselors. They needed one-on-one attention. They needed small group attention. And we were being pushed into the classrooms more and more. And let me tell you, I have no classroom management. I was not trained as a professional teacher, was trained to manage classrooms. Sure. And so it came to a point where I knew the kids were seeing me struggle in this role. And I collaborated with many teachers. I sat in many classrooms. I tried my very best to be able to manage a classroom. It is hard work. Yeah. And it is probably one of the reasons why I didn't become a classroom teacher, because I did do student teaching. I did do some teaching, but I knew right away that my role was not to be in any kind of authoritative position with
and
kids.
Talk about energy too, though. I mean, that it sucks your energy. All those people vying for your attention and needing that one-on-one, and you can only devote so much time to each person.
And we have great teachers out there that they're like phenomenal. Teachers are phenomenal, and that's not what my role was.
Right,
my role,
or your intention,
or my intention. My role was to connect with kids one-on-one and to help them. Help them in a space where they, again, judgment free. There's no peers. There's no other adults. It's just, it's just pure safety and sharing with me. Putting me out in the classroom made me look like somebody who was of authority and kids, and I was losing it. I was like, right, right. And which just put me at not in a very good place of disposition with these kids, because they look for that. They're looking for that. And so I felt like the last, I'm going to say 2 years of being a school counselor, especially the last year, that I was starting to become someone kids didn't want to come to, because
you were so visible.
I was so visible, and I wasn't I wasn't really trained in classroom management. I'm the one that kids come down and play games with.
Right.
That's
right.
what my role is,
Well, and I find it so interesting too, because the mental health conversation has gotten better. It has gotten easier. People are starting to, like you said, to take that time and sit down and speak with a therapist to really say, okay, maybe there's some things about myself I need to change or realize, or I have some past trauma, family issues that no one else is going to address, but it ends with me. I've got to address it. So it's interesting to me that now, and especially, we have the discussion about school shootings. We have the discussion about individual, mental health, and also how we're addressing people that are on the spectrum and all of that. So it's interesting to me that now schools kind of want to take a step back, even though they do recognize there are issues.
Right. Well,
so it's weird.
For me, I will say it was pandemic driven.
Sure.
Counselors needed to be in the classrooms. This is a time when, the school that I worked in, we did both. So we taught with our laptops moving around, because we taught kids that were at home, and we taught kids that were in the classroom. It was really hard. And it was really hard.
I would imagine so, yeah.
And, and then getting kids to put their cameras on was not happening.
Right,
and you go and you're like, okay, Timmy's not answering, because he's really not anywhere near his computer. Oh, gosh. And so I knew the reason why there was lack of teachers. People were out sick, and we were quarantining for long periods of time.
And they have kids themselves that are home.
And you can't stop the curriculum.
Right.
You can't stop the curriculum. But I thought when everybody returned back to school, that it was a great opportunity to kind of change some of the things.
Yeah.
Because we went back to the normal, and the normal wasn't the same.
Wasn't working, yeah.
And I was still being asked to go into I was teaching every day. I probably, my job went from 80% counseling, 20% teaching, to the exact opposite. And it just took a toll on me. And while that was happening, my father was dying. Oh. And so when I learned that my father's cancer was terminal, it was like, what am I'm waking up and I'm hating going to work every day.
Yeah.
Do I want other people coming in and taking care of my dad? My mom is still capable, but she's grief
Sure,
driven.
Of course, absolutely.
This is really horrible for her. My dad and my mom have been together since they were 16 years old. They're in their 80s. So I can't even imagine how that is for my mom.
Yeah.
But so I took a 2-week leave of absence. I applied for FMLA.
Yep.
I wasn't eligible for that. So
that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes, it is a whole other conversation. So I decided to I'm done.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't really prepared for what that really meant.
Sure. Yeah.
I knew I needed to be there for my dad, and I knew I didn't want to work in the schools anymore.
Yeah.
I'm 19 years. I went through the whole. It was just I was burnt.
Yeah.
I was really burnt out.
But isn't that interesting though? Again, we're not going to go off this tangent, because Lord knows we've gone off it before. But you were saying, hey, I just need a little bit of time to address this, and rather than just letting you take that time, being compassionate, being empathetic, being sympathetic, okay, take that time, take care of it. They turned around, denied you, and you said, well, I've got to do this anyway.
Yep.
So
I left.
Now you don't get me at all ever again. And I just, I hear these stories and I think I want to call these companies and be like, was it worth it? Like, have you learned your lesson? Have you figured this out?
In all honesty,
it was going to happen anyway.
It had to happen because I was having severe panic attacks in school.
Sure.
And for anyone who's never experienced one, in the beginning, when it first starts, you think like you're having a heart attack. It's very suffocating. It hurts like crazy.
Debilitating.
And you can't breathe and you feel so completely out of control. It's scary. It's scary as all get out. Now, it's one thing having a panic attack at home on the weekends, but they started, I had to leave school. So that was happening at the same time that I was trying to figure out, well, how am I going to be here for my dad and my mom? And so the question was, how did I get to, where I am with, why I wrote the book and everything.
Right.
And it was the first time in years that I felt like I'm not enough. I'm not good enough.
Oh.
I can't do it all. My self-esteem and my confidence just tanked. Now, prior to that, I was teacher of the year. I knew I was good. I knew I was good at my job. I had really excellent feelings about my worth for many years.
Yeah.
I had many years prior to that, which is in the book, not so much. But to all of a sudden feel that feeling again, it was such a trigger for me. It was such a, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for this, that I decided to totally just change everything. This is my opportunity. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
My dad and my mom don't need me sitting visual with them. They didn't need me 24/7.
Right.
I had some time to myself. What am I going to do?
Right.
So I decided to go back to school. That's what we do. Even school haters go back to school, and I became this empowerment coach, and I started that business. And as I was doing that, so much I was just a blob of feeling so much all the time, and it was really exhausting. And starting a business is really hard. I didn't have clients were not like I thought that
they'd be knocking down your door.
they'd be knocking down my door. I had that naivety of this I'm here and people are going to be like, oh,
and I'm what you need.
And I'm going to help you. But at the same time, our economy was really, really struggling.
Well, and again, there is that stigma attached because people don't understand what a life coach could do for them.
Right.
And certainly someone who may not feel they need that. Mm-hmm. But it makes perfect sense that these are parents seeking, help for their students who are eventually going to go off to college or potentially move out their job. Mm-hmm. They need to kind of have an understanding of how the world works. Yeah. While they've been so kind of isolated.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so that didn't go as I
sure.
thought. I had a beautiful apartment at 19 Main. Office at 19 Main. Loved it. It was, but eventually I had to let it go because I wasn't bringing in enough money to justify the rent. And so then I ended up doing what I was dreading and was fearful the most was going back home and working out of my office, which means I like to see people face to face.
Sure.
I will say I really appreciate the whole virtual thing because I do a lot of coaching all over the United States.
Oh, absolutely.
But I really liked people coming in
to
my office, and I think the best work is done, in
again,
person.
It's that one-on-one. It's that it's the intimacy, but it's also that trust building.
Yeah,
right.
just a better connection. It's just better. But so I had to get past that. That's not what I was going to do, and I had this time on my hands, and I'm just like, what am I going to do? And so this summer, a couple summers ago, I said, you know what? I'm going to take a writer's boot camp. I have no idea why. I cannot tell you why that was a decision. So I found this writer's boot camp, Next Page Publishing. They're my publishers for my book.
Great.
And I was only going to see what it would be like to write a book. I wasn't going to do any,
you didn't have a book to write at that point.
I had no book to write. Yeah. I knew I have a lot to say,
right.
But I specifically who I'm going to target, whatever. I had no idea of any of that. So I took this writing boot camp. I absolutely loved it, and I didn't want it to end. so these people are genius. They have these writing boot camps, and then they pitch you these wonderful offers. And everything that they pitched they've been fantastic. I would have never written the book without them, but it's slowly snowballed into Chasing Worthiness, and which will be out September 26th. It'll it'll be out. And so that's kind of where this came from. I had time, I had space. I was feeling old junk feelings, like really difficult feelings and I'm like, what better way to get through this than to write about it? And then I realized this is really hard work.
Oh yeah.
And this is probably one of the most emotional things I ever had to do.
Yeah.
And right now in my seat, while I'm really excited about it, it's also very terrifying.
Sure.
Because there's so much of me.
Right.
In that book.
It's very vulnerable. And, now you're like, okay, well, here it is. And people are going to have opinions and judgments and
It's all about that. It's so funny. All of this is about, all different kinds of judgment, self-judgment, judgment of others, fear of other people's opinions.
Yeah.
I could go on and on. And I'm going through all of it.
So let's talk about the book. So by the time this episode airs, it will be out, and it's called Chasing Worthiness. Amy Christopherson Jakes. You can look that up. Chasing Worthiness, Unmasking the Stories You Tell Yourself, which I think, again, even just that little subtitle is something that I think we all know we do it. We all know we do it. But, again, with the life coaching, I think it's really important that we learn how to move beyond the story that we tell ourselves.
Get past it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, so how it's set up is it is all of some periods of times in my life when I have felt less than worthy, when I struggled with that I'm not good enough feeling. I went through so many years as a young married parent of feeling less than, not good enough. Yeah. And so those little parts of my life are all in this book. And I kind of write, if I knew then what I know now, kind of coaching. Of course. This is the scenario, and this is what my feelings were. And this is how, if I had this tool, this is how I would have used it and how it would have benefited me. Yeah. So that's kind of the setup of the book. And my hope is that people start checking in with themselves more often and start, why am I talking so harshly to myself? Like, why am I putting myself down all the time? Why am I always going to the what if? Why aren't I saying, well, what if it does happen? Just like, what if no one likes my book?
Yeah. Well, we all think of the worst case scenario.
What if people do?
Right.
And start working from that space, and really easy to say.
Of course.
Really, even as to this day, I still have to work through a lot of those feelings, because this is years, and this feeling like you're chasing worthiness is like years in the making. So it's it's just like understanding that it's there, and how do I manage it, and how do I work through it, how do I get past it.
Yeah.
One of the best sections I think of the book is just laughing at yourself. Just everything is ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Everything is ridiculous. I don't care who you are. It's ridiculous. And so the more we can kind of think that way, and, we go back to our faux pas or the mistakes that we've made some great mistakes. Everybody's made great mistakes. But it's just like, okay, what parts of those mistakes? Can we just really laugh at some of that? Can we just stop taking ourselves so seriously? Yeah. And once you start kind of working from that space, it does seem easier. It does seem like, okay, we're all human, we're all human. And no human is this whole thing about being perfect is a whole section about perfectionism, because that's what I aimed for as a young parent. And let me tell you, I would parent a little differently, probably not a whole lot differently, but I would be kinder to myself. If I were to go back, I would be much kinder to myself. I wouldn't take on the world as my responsibility. I really took on everything.
Well, but I think every parent goes through that, right? Because everybody's got an opinion, and everybody, I've done it this way, or I've seen that, or that's how I was raised. And okay, great. That's This is my family,
right.
though.
And this,
you know,
and this is how I like my wackadoodle little family.
Right.
So leave us alone. we're doing great.
Right. Exactly.
You know, but I didn't always have that because I just felt like I was measuring myself up to some form of perfection.
And we all do
somehow.
that.
Yeah.
We all do that.
We gotta, you know, we all have to find space where, okay, enough is enough. Because that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no perfection. So why do we strive? Why did we strive for that? And I really don't want people to think that I'm saying don't work towards your best. Don't strive for your best.
Right.
You know, yes, but also make sure that you're not burning out. Make sure that you're loving on yourself. Make sure that, you know, you can find your space and happiness every once in a while.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's what's it all?
I think also, you know, recognize your limitations as well. A couple of my friends, you know, so I'm 41, and again, same thing. We kind of grew up in that weird where like, you know, our families, the older generations, they didn't believe in therapy. I don't need therapy. I don't have those problems like other people have. Yet we all kind of recognize like this is something maybe we should look into. Maybe we should give it a shot, and we might need a third party to just talk stuff out. So we kind of started, my generation kind of started that where we were looking more into self-care and self-help and you know, taking that me time. So I have a lot of friends that are very good about saying, listen, my social battery is spent. And I appreciate it. I recognize, and it's a different way to talk about things. It's not, I don't want to spend time with you. It's that I need some quiet time for myself for right now. And I think when you change the language,
you give it language.
Yes. And when you can change that, because that's what happens, right? As a society, we take things very personally. What do you mean you don't want to go out? What do you mean you don't want to, you know, go? You know,
we're all going. How come? You know, it's not going to be. It's not going to be the same if you're not there. Like all that pressure.
Right. Exactly.
I just want to stay in my pajamas
all that
tonight.
Pressure. Right. Exactly. And you know, if we can flip that. And like you said, put language to it and just say, hey, this is how it is. I'll catch you the next time, whatever. Oh, okay. That makes and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And if only we could all have a better understanding.
I grew up in an era. Well, first of all, my parents came from the silent generation, so that just says it all right there.
Yeah.
And I grew up thinking that it was watching my mom, and she still does this to this day. At 83, she's still, you know, everything's fine, everything's good. Oh no, it's not true. And I grew up where in an era where it's like everybody had to believe that I was fine and everything was going well and everything was good and I had it all pulled together. I was a Girl Scout troop leader for 10 years. I had. I worked full time. All this. You had to like look like you were handling it all, and you were so happy all the time.
Right.
Blah blah blah.
And nobody wants to hear your problems.
Nobody wants to hear your problems. Nobody, and everybody needs to think that you have like the best marriage, and if that's what's happening, just let it go. Even though inside you're having the same difficult marriage everybody else is probably having.
Right.
So it. That's where I came from. That is not what I wanted for my kids. And I can see, you look back now and I can say, that was really good parenting. Because my kids have conversations like the ones that you've just talked about of like, well, sorry, I'm not up to it today.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all it has to be, instead of coming up with like some big story. I remember like I was going to come up with some big story about, why I couldn't do something or, and it's just like, it's my engine is dry. I have to recharge.
Yeah.
Like that's good parenting. Like I can look back and go, okay, my children are suffering in their own ways, but they're not suffering in the ways that I know I didn't want them to suffer because I'm watching them like just watching both of my kids being like, well, I don't have time for that crap. Just do what it is that they want to do or need to do or how they feel things should be done. I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
But I I thought throughout almost all of my parenting that I was a bad parent, which is really sad.
But I think every parent feels that way. Again, multiple generations. I'm friends with people of all ages, and I've seen it within my own family. I think that's just, as a parent, you're always going to be worried. You're always going to feel that guilt, like I didn't do enough. I didn't set them up for success. I didn't, their failures are your failures, and it's like, no, just shit happens sometimes. But I understand. I completely understand.
Just to plug this,
yes.
I do, because it just came up. But on September 25th, I will be at the library doing a workshop from 6 to 7 called Reframing the Empty Nest.
Great.
And it's all about kind of what we're talking about and how we need to stop being so rough on our parenting choices and let I don't know if you know Mel Robbins. Everybody knows Mel Robbins, but I learned from her this term bird launching. And so why are we calling it the empty nest? That's a terrible thing. We don't want to empty anything. Well, let's look at it through a different lens and call it bird launching.
Yeah,
so
I like that.
That's what that workshop's going to be on September 25th.
Nice.
You have to register at the library, but to kind of help people not spend so much time in those thoughts about are they really sending kids off that are ready? What didn't they do? How didn't they prepare them?
Well, you know what? I think it is too. So again, every generation has that feeling of, oh, we want our kids to do better than we have done. But I think what people don't realize is that looks differently generation to generation too.
Absolutely.
So, the boomer generation, their parents were like, we want you to be successful. We want you to have money and be comfortable. Then those people, when they became parents, it was more important to them. We want you to graduate from college. We want you to get a good education. We want you to, to be set up so you don't have to, work these meaningless jobs, these, retail jobs, whatever. And then now it's kind of turned to, well, we want you to be emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, happy, regardless of what decision you make. We don't want you comparing yourself to someone else.
Right.
We want you to be happy in yourself. If that comes with being successful, if that comes with having a family,
bonus.
Bonus, exactly. But I think, again, maybe that started with my generation as well. We all had that. I certainly did growing up. I thought, by 25, I was going to be with my person. And by 30, I was going to have kids. My mom had me at 30. She had my sister at 34. So that's what we're going to do. I didn't move out of my mom's house until I was 30, and I didn't get an adult paying job with adult benefits and all of that until I was 28. So it looks different for everyone.
It does.
And now I'm 41. I'm single. I'm childless, and I'm thriving. I'm not upset about it.
Yeah. I love that.
But it's all about recognizing your priorities, recognizing what, like you said, your limitations, but also what you are capable of, and going for it. I tell my friends all the time, because again, I have friends of all generations. I tell my friends, especially their kids, I'll say to them, listen, your 20s is when you act like a complete idiot and make all the mistakes and do all the stupid things. And that's the generation you're going to look back and kind of cringe and get the ick about the stupid things you said and did in war. The 30s is when you start to kind of establish and again, I think also generationally it's gotten later and later in life. So in your 30s is when you finally start to get a little stability and you recognize the direction you want to take and where you want to go. And then your 40s is when you make it happen and you start to shed all of that other BS that you don't need. And you just say, no, this is what makes me happy. This is what I'm doing.
Right.
And then from there on, I mean, I'm told all the time, people, 50, 60, 70, I don't give a damn anymore. And I don't care about that. And I don't care about that. Because you start to realize what's important in life. It's a shame that I feel like it happened so late, but.
I think, but just listening to you, because I'm I'm almost 60. So, it's good to hear you speak and how you process things and how you and your friends talk about things.
Yeah.
So would have been awesome for me.
Yeah.
So I think I think it's starting to come younger and younger. I think that, that we are evolving.
Yeah.
It's just that my fear is that we have people who are still stuck in the world of rumination and worry and,
we'll
I do enough?
Always have that, right? We'll always have
how do you
those
manage
people.
it? Like, how do you, when do you know it's not controlling your life anymore?
I tell everyone the best thing you can do is talk about it.
Talking is
And
awesome.
that is essentially the point of this podcast, is to just share stories and experiences. So that for me, because it's maybe no one can relate to you. No one has walked that path. Nobody has had the issues that you've had. Nobody's had the struggles or the burdens or the roadblocks that you have had. But you'll reach that one person that says, oh, yeah, I can relate. Or man, that sucks, but I might be able to help you. Or I might know of a way beyond, what you've got going on. So I always say, and again, I thankfully, I think this generation has gotten better. I know we let social media is the hang up.
That's your difficulty.
Yeah.
Your challenge is definitely social media.
Because, our entire, everyone across the span of humanity, we've always compared ourselves to the next guy, especially if they're doing better than you or what have you. Or in the opposite, we say, oh, isn't that so sad that they're not X, Y, and Z. But now it's in our face all the time that this is what you have to do, look like, say,
absolutely.
do. And but again,
I think
to your
about
point, it's not
if I had
sustainable either.
social media when I was a teenager, it would have done me in.
Yeah.
It would have done me in.
Yeah.
Just being a school counselor and what was brought to the school all the time was, these stories are heartbreaking,
sure.
and that's what y'all had as part of your culture. I didn't have that as part of my culture.
Yeah, the added pressure.
Yeah. It's like when I went home from school, that was it. I could say to my mom, I'm not talking on the phone today.
Right.
And she could just say, well, they're not here or whatever.
Right.
And
you just turn on the TV and shut your brain
off. Or my
off
mom will just not answer. Nobody answers the phone.
Right.
We didn't even have an answering machine. So you couldn't even get I'm trying to call you and you're not calling me back.
Right.
You just got to break. You got to break. I would, go away for 2 weeks to camp, which I absolutely loved. And I didn't have I didn't have a device with me everywhere I went. It was just like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't part of my culture.
Yeah.
And I think as a person that I'm grateful that it wasn't. I'm grateful that I was the parent that I could be to help my children navigate through that. But they even missed part of that. My kids didn't have laptops in their bedrooms.
Right.
They shared a flip phone. They got in 8th grade. So the second child got it 4 years later,
Right.
And that stayed they only went with them when they went to like sleepovers or when they went somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't get a cell phone until I was 16 and I was driving. It wasn't, some people, if I wasn't driving until I was 18, that's when I would have it. I never would have gotten it beforehand.
Yeah.
And we shared the one PC in the office with the family.
We had ours. Ours was in between. We had the open concept in our house, so ours was between the kitchen and the living room, and this big cabinet, this big desktop.
And everybody can see what you're looking up as you walk by. Absolutely, yeah.
So and it got so much more intimate quickly with people having smaller devices.
Well, I tell people all the time, and this is a big thing. Not to call my mom out, but I struggle with my mom. So I made fun of her when she got an iPhone. I said, that's ridiculous. You're not going to use 90% of what the thing is capable of. There's no need for you to get something so elaborate as an iPhone. She uses it more than anybody I know. She's worse than a teenager, honestly. But I tell her all the time, because I have turned my notifications completely off. I have the ringer on, that's it. But there's no dinging, there's no blinging, there's no chime when someone sends me whatever.
Right. Do not disturb is my best friend.
Yeah, because if you need me, you'll call, and if not, it can wait.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing too, was recognizing like not everything needs my immediate attention or a response this moment. So when I did that, things really changed for me. My mom, same thing. She said, "Oh well, I have it on silent." okay, but she still has all the notification bubbles
Yeah.
pop up. All the
I don't like the
headlines.
number. I can't handle that.
Every her that's all. You look at her phone, and that's the front of it is just notification bubbles. Headline. And I said, you got to turn those off. And she doesn't get what I'm saying, but I'm like, you can't, you can't be on the phone like that.
Yeah.
But everybody needs to find
their balance,
that thing.
And
set that boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
It is wild, but it's here. It's here,
So what other types of things are we going to learn, or I don't know what are you trying to say with chasing worthiness?
Okay. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to have people to stop working towards chasing worthiness. Like, you are enough. Like, you are actually more than enough. You're not recognizing it in yourself, and you need to give yourself space to see that of yourself. You need to have a major mind shift, like re-look at things differently, reframe so much of our thinking. We need to pause.
Yeah.
I call it take a beat. You need to take a beat, and you need to think for a minute, and you need to rephrase things, like if you're noticing that all of a sudden I'm negative, like, do something about it. Like, yes, acknowledging it is great, but do something about it. And how do you do that? How do you reframe? How do you stop and take a beat? How do you how do you take a breath?
I've heard so many people say, if you wouldn't tolerate someone talking to you that way, why do you allow yourself to talk about yourself that way? Why do you look at yourself that way?
The other way I like to present people to look at it is this how you want your child to talk to themselves? Is this how you would want your loved one to talk to themselves?
Or even just, do you want your kid growing up watching you talk that way about yourself, feel that way about yourself, and think that that's okay to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's how like when I work with people who struggle with perfectionism, and they have, children, grow children, and I'm like, you grow up watching a parent struggle with perfectionism, you're probably going to struggle with perfectionism.
Yeah.
So try to think about how you would want this life for your loved one, or your child or your loved one, and do the same for yourself. Like, do the same for yourself. Because if we don't stop and take a beat, we're not going to be able to put the changes in place that we need to put in place so that we can, start liking ourselves. I mean, self-love is all important thing, but how about just liking yourself?
Right.
It's just like, we all have moments and times when we have loved ones who we don't like for whatever reason that they're going through, right?
Yeah.
And we all have, go through times when, maybe we don't like ourselves so much. Let's work on that. Like, what is it that's keeping yourself from liking yourself? What is it? Let's focus on that. Are these rational thoughts that you're having, or are they completely irrational?
Or is it something that maybe you could change?
And how do you do it?
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of things that I feel like that I know people will get out of my book. It's not just, all about recognizing and acknowledging. It's really important, but like, specifically, what do I need to do to change these behaviors? Or what do I need to do to change, my negative thought process?
Yeah. It could be one thing.
It could be one thing.
It could be many things, but a lot of the time, if you just adjust one thing, do one thing differently, everything will change. Everything will change. There was a recent film out called The Materialists with Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal. I don't know if you saw it.
Love that cast.
Yeah. Not a great movie, to be fair. But the whole concept was Dakota Johnson is a matchmaker for hire, very, very high price, expensive matchmaker in New York. And her whole thing is, she doesn't care about love. She doesn't care about why you're in the relationship, but she understands we are chasing worthiness. That the reason I have chosen this partner is because that partner makes me feel worthy, gives me self-worth, makes me see the value in myself, or shows others that I am valuable. And that's all we want as a society at the end of the day. I don't really want to be loved. I don't really want, what matters to me is that you're putting me on this pedestal, that you're showing me off to people, that maybe I'm better than someone else. That was kind of the premise of the film. It's very superficial as it may be. I think there is some truth to it.
People are chasing for external validation constantly, all the time.
But what should matter, as you say, is the internal, is how you look at yourself.
Your intrinsic,
how you view yourself in the world, not how the world views you, 100%. Because at the end of the day, listen, we're all really busy.
Yeah.
And I don't really have time to think about your worth. And just, like I'm not wasting my day worrying about what you're doing. I'm trying to get through.
And that's in my book too. It's like, we go to places, some social situations are really difficult for me. And people are always like, are you kidding? And I'm like, no, like I'm dying,
Right. This is not my place.
Yeah. I may look like, a superstar, but inside I'm dying.
Yeah.
But it's the whole it's just the whole process is I'm so worried about what other people are thinking about me, and they're so worried about what people are thinking about them. Like we're not really paying attention to each other, And it took a long time for me to really realize, and put that into an actionable thing for me. Yeah. Like if I'm getting ready to go somewhere and I have to be social with people who I don't really know, which is it makes me very nervous.
That's fair, yeah.
It just does. And if I, working on, okay, well, that person is also sitting there going, oh my God, what are they thinking of me? Or I think I misspoke. Oh, I said that wrong. Oh, they're focusing so much on their own little selves. They're not paying attention to me.
Well, I would even try to turn that around too and say, okay, these people are here because they want to meet me. They want to get to know me. They want to, that's why we left the house, because, there might be something interesting that we're going to talk about, or, it's,
that's really a good point, because the whole, the thing is I'm going there for a purpose.
Yeah.
I'm putting myself for a purpose.
Yeah.
And how else am I going to meet other people or learn new things if I don't put myself out there?
I had gotten to that point, it was pre-pandemic, but it was the same thing. I would go to work, I would come home, plop myself in front of the TV. I had my handful of friends at the time, but everyone, people get on with their lives, especially again, being single and childless and having friends with kids. I rarely see them. And one day my roommate at the time said, oh, I'm going to go do trivia with my family. Do you want to come out? And I said, no, I've already put my PJs on. I'm sitting here. Yeah. And I said to him, no, make me go. Make me go with you. There's no reason I can't leave the house right now for a couple of hours. And turns out it was something that became a regular thing for years. I met a lot of great people, some of whom have been on this podcast through those trivia nights. And it again, that one decision to go out that one time opened up so many doors after the fact. And I think people need to kind of, again, we have to train our brains to think differently and to look at situations differently.
You gotta reframe everything. Just reframe it so it works for yourself. Yeah. Reframe it.
The number one soundbite going around the world right now, and I'm sure you've heard it yourself, was the infamous Taylor Swift New Heights interview on on their podcast, and she had said, you have to view your time as an expense, as valuable.
It is valuable.
And how much of that are you willing to let people chip away at for free? And at the end of the day, no. And when she said it, I was like, that's what I've been trying to say to people, to myself. And it's just such a, because again, we're all very materialistic people. It's money rules everything, And when you treat yourself as a luxury item, and you say, no, not everyone has the privilege of this. This is exclusive. This is limited edition. You don't. You're not going to get this kind of time.
Right.
And I think that's a very powerful thing.
It's very empowering.
Something we have to repeat a lot. Maybe other people aren't going to agree with that, but again, those
Well,
are probably the people that don't deserve it.
Or they're struggling enough with their own fears that they can't get there yet.
Yeah.
You know, they're not there yet, but you shouldn't be holding yourself back because somebody else isn't there yet.
Right.
You know. But yeah, I do know, remember the Taylor Swift coming out with that.
And maybe we have to break it down in value terms. So maybe you're living a Thrift Mart life right now, but there's no reason you can't become a luxury good. There's no, and we just have to want it, and we have to. You know.
And by the way, there's no live a thrift if that's what makes you happy, then live it and be it, and don't measure yourself against what everybody else thinks is success, because yours is going to be different.
Well, I was talking to a family member about that, and because again, and we all have different ways we want to live our life and spend our time and our money and all of that, and they were kind of judging. Somebody had gone away on vacation and then kind of came back and said, oh, well, we need this weekend because we need a break from after the vacation, which, okay. And they were kind of, judging them about that. But I looked at that person and I said, yeah, but if you had the same luxuries, if you had the same, you wouldn't live that way. That's just not who you are. That's not the lifestyle you're interested in.
Yeah, you're built different.
So I said, so why are you that's what they need and what they want to do. You just choose to spend your time differently. It doesn't mean that they're wrong.
Right.
And they sat back and they said, oh yeah, I guess that's true. And it's like, okay, so
so move past that.
So what do you care what they're doing? Because you would never do the same. So it doesn't matter.
Right.
And that's okay as well. We are allowed to live different lives and make different decisions, and
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, again, so Chasing Worthiness, Amy Christopherson Jakes. Yes. Sorry, Jakes.
That's okay.
Again, unmasking the stories you tell yourself. I'm just, how long did it take you to write the book?
I started writing the book. I'm going to say the writing boot camp was last summer. So it's taking me about
That's not
year.
Bad though.
Well, I did hire this great publishing company, Next Page Publishing, and they you get a writing coach, you get a marketing coach, you get
That's great.
There was a lot of services that I received from this awesome team. So without them, I don't know that I could set a deadline and actually meet it. But they kept me
well, again, when you have that support system in place, sometimes that's all you need. Again, the start of this podcast, I had been thinking about it for a really long time, been really interested in it, but I got overwhelmed by the equipment and where do you post it and how do you edit?
That's how I feel about it.
Exactly. So that was, my producer, Mike, that was what it was. I reached out to him one day and I said, oh, I have a question about equipment. And he said, why don't you just come to the studio and start recording here and just, get used to things, see how it works. And that's been it. We've taken off ever since then. So sometimes that's all you need is just that one person saying, hey, just do this. Just start here.
And then let yourself do it. Let yourself take the help.
Yes.
Let yourself do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything else you want to leave us with before we say goodbye?
I just want everybody to, to take a beat and appreciate who they are, and to start thinking and speaking to themselves in more positive terms. Yes. And breathe and take each day one day at a time. Yes. And we're all in this together. We're all human, and there's no reason for comparison, because we're all individuals,
and we're all chasing our worthiness.
And we're all chasing our worthiness, and just be kind with yourself about that. Because it can do a number if you don't pay attention.
Go out there and catch it, gang.
Yeah.
Well, again, Amy, thank you so much. And I'll say it one more time. The book is Chasing Worthiness, Amy Christopherson Jakes. And gang, this was Try Not to Curse. We will catch you next time.